funny because they're such a drab little bird, but their behavior and their song are just stunning.
This remarkable creature is called the American dipper, or water ouzel, and it is quite simply a delight to watch. Welcome to Incredible Idaho. I'm Jack Hemingway. Tonight we begin our show with a profile of this unusual bird. Naturalist John Muir calls it the mountain stream's own darling. He writes, "Among all the mountain birds, none has cheered me so much in my lonely wanderings, none so unfailingly. For both in winter and summer he sings, sweetly, cheerily, independent alike of sunshine and love, requiring no other inspiration than the stream on which he dwells."
Here comes the second bird.
It's obvious how the bird got the name. It always seems to be in motion, constantly bobbing up and down in quick, nervous dips. The dipper is the only truly aquatic songbird, making its home along rushing rivers and tumbling streams.
See, the nest is on that ledge there. You can see the dome of moss, or heap of moss.
Botanist Roger Rosentreter and wildlife biologist Kat Strickler both have an interest in these energetic little birds. Aside from their cheery disposition, it's their nest material that intrigues Roger.
Right there. Most nests are by more current and rapid type water, but that one seems to be so overhung and protected that it's happy there and free.
This is a pretty consistent nest site.
Yeah.
They've been here every year I've been coming here.
Mm-hmm. So
Right in the center of your screen is a dipper nest, clinging to the cliff face. Watch carefully, and you'll see the adult go in. It's not your typical songbird nest. Dippers are relatively large, and it must also accommodate 2 to 6 offspring.
This is the wall that amazes me. I mean, that wall is 3 inches thick.
And
It's really
they
deep.
often take the moss and they'll moisten the moss, and when the moss is moist, they'll weave it together, and then as it dries, it hardens, kind of like making adobe
tightens.
houses or something.
This is one of a number of dipper nests that Roger has collected for his research.
Well, I've been interested in several animals that use different unusual plant materials for their nests. And this is a good example where the aquatic mosses are very important for providing food for the dippers and their nest building material. And it's a very good insulating property.
The nests are often difficult to detect. This one was spotted in late spring along the Columbia River Gorge in Oregon. It's hidden behind a waterfall. Watch what happens when the adult arrives with food. Research biologist Kat Strickler is more interested in the bird itself and its dependence on clean water. She's recently been awarded a scholarship by the Charles de Vlieg Foundation to conduct her doctoral research.
My study is going to be largely focused on the relationship between water quality and dipper populations. I'll be looking at a bunch of different parameters of dipper ecology in relationship to different land treatments, the 2 most important of which are going to be wilderness management and timber harvest, and the road building associated with timber harvest. Are they both down there? Oh, yeah. Oh, he's pretty active down there.
2 birds are foraging along the river's edge, searching for aquatic insects like the mayflies and caddis that make up their diet.
Oh, in the water down underneath.
Isn't that cool?
Oh, very nice. They do swim underwater. They swim underwater. There are actually accounts of them walking underwater, although I've never seen it. But they in places that are where the current is strong enough to make it difficult for humans to stand, these birds will be standing in the water, swimming underwater, swimming upstream, diving down to the bottom, and coming up again in more or less the same spot. They're incredible.
When they emerge from the water, they appear perfectly dry. All birds have an oil gland on their back, right above the tail. They use this oil for preening their feathers. In the dipper, this gland is unusually large.
They just completely coat themselves with this oil so that when they go dive into the water, they can come up and just look like they haven't even gotten wet.
Now, watch closely, and you'll see one bird bringing food to the other. Later in the year, you might see something like this. An adult bird feeding young that have recently left the nest. But it's too early for that here.
What's that?
I'm not going to run staircase. I'm just paddling around.
Dippers seem to have a strong tolerance for people. Most river runners have a favorite dipper story. Birds perching on rafts or riding along on a kayak.
Human presence doesn't really bother them, but for a few minutes. And the people swing off this rope swing, splash around the water, and they just fly in and out and do their business and don't seem to be bothered by recreation. And I see the bird back upstream. You want to paddle up there? The more you get to know the dippers, you can often be in a very kind of violent rapid, and in your boat you can pull into a calm spot within that rapid and just kind of get it, very peaceful and watch what the dippers are doing. And they're in among all this whitewater, just like this is the best place to be. There's oxygen and there's lots of in the water, and there's more aquatic insects where there's rapids, so they enjoy that.
There's something calming and transcending about watching wildlife that feeds the soul. In an elegant essay published in 1911, naturalist John Muir describes the harmony of sounds surrounding the water ouzel's world. He writes, "In a general way, his music is that of the streams, refined and spiritualized. The deep booming notes of the falls are in it, the trills of rapids, the gurgling of margin eddies, the low whispering of level reaches, and the sweet tinkle of separate drops oozing from the ends of mosses and falling into tranquil pools." Coming up next, infected elk.
We know we have the disease. We know it's spread through winter feeding. What can we do to stop it? At this point in time, we have not found a brucella-positive elk in Idaho, but it's waiting to happen. And if we start feeding these animals on a year-by-year basis, we can end up in trouble by acclimating those animals to come back to that area to be fed.
That interview with wildlife veterinarian Dave Hunter was taped back in 1991. Now, 7 years later, it's happened. This spring, along Idaho's eastern border, disease has been discovered in our elk. The place is called Rainy Creek, east of Idaho Falls. It lies about 11 miles from the Wyoming border. The habitat in the immediate area can't support the 450 elk that winter here. So for some years, there's been a feeding program in operation. It was instigated to entice wildlife away from local ranches where deer and elk were eating feed reserved for livestock. For a while, that solved the problem, but now that practice has led to an even greater problem.
And at that site, the animals were tested. 33 of them were tested, and 10 of them came up positive for antibody to Brucella abortus.
Brucellosis is a cattle disease. Originally from Europe, the disease was transmitted to wildlife by domestic livestock, brought in with the white settlers in the 1800s. Over the last few decades, brucellosis has been eradicated from most domestic animals in the United States. But it still remains in some of our country's wildlife, mainly elk and bison that live in the vicinity of Yellowstone National Park. And now, in one of Idaho's elk herds.
It's reason for concern. At this point, it's important to our folks to realize it's confined to the wildlife. It's only elk that have tested positive for brucellosis. But the concern to cattle ranchers is that because a lot of times those elk feed on their ranch, for instance, or that they might interact with cattle, that the disease could be transmitted. And that's something we obviously want to work to prevent.
The disease kills moose. In elk, bison, and domestic cattle, it can cause animals to spontaneously abort their fetuses. This is also how the disease is spread. The brucella organism is found in the birthing fluids. When a birthing event takes place, whether it's an abortion, stillborn, or live birth, instinct prompts herd animals to clean up the birthing event, thus preventing the scent of blood from attracting predators. And so the organism is propagated.
That's the only way this disease is spread. If these elk go nose to nose with cattle, it's no problem as long as there wasn't a birthing event involved.
Since 1989, Idaho's been designated as a brucellosis-free state, a critical classification for our state's cattle industry.
And what that means is we can ship our cattle out of Idaho anywhere in the country. Now, for some reason, if that status was downgraded, we would have additional requirements before we could ship cattle. It might include additional costly testing, other methods of inventory and quarantine, and things that would hamper our ability to sell cattle. And that translates back on the ground to local communities. If a rancher can't sell cattle, he probably can't, go in to pay the grocery bill, to buy the new pickup, or to do anything else that local communities depend on.
So what's to be done? It appears that at least one of the animals in the Rainy Creek herd was originally from Wyoming, where the disease is prevalent. One thing is certain, Idaho does not want to repeat Wyoming's mistakes.
They have 23 feed grounds where they feed 27,000 animals a year, and they have a vaccination program going. And that vaccination program is to hopefully prevent the spread of the organism.
Kind of a two-step process. We mark the animal.
Wyoming got into a pattern of winter feeding in the early 1900s, and it's never stopped. Each winter, the wild elk of Wyoming come to the feed grounds for handouts, and each winter, the concentration of animals spreads disease. Vaccinations alone cost the U.S. Department of Agriculture over $100,000 a year. Add to that over $2 million spent on feeding by the state and federal governments, and you have a hefty price tag. And the vaccination program on its own only contains the disease. It will never eradicate brucellosis in Wyoming's wildlife as long as widespread winter feeding continues. But that scenario doesn't have to happen in Idaho.
Can we handle this situation? Yeah, I think we can do it. There's several concerned agencies involved. It's not just fish and game and agriculture. The livestock industry itself is very, very concerned about this. The sportsmen in the state of Idaho are very concerned. I think that we only have one population at this point in time that's shown to have exposure to this disease, and the rest of them have all tested clean.
So is the answer to stop winter feeding entirely? What else will entice the wild elk away from the ranches? Could improving winter range and enhancing the habitat be part of the solution? Should there be special hunts to reduce the elk herd in Rainy Creek? What about vaccinating the domestic cattle in the area as a short-term precaution? These are the types of questions that must be addressed.
Obviously it's a serious situation, but at this point, the Fish and Game folks, the State Department of Ag, have worked very closely with ranchers, with sportsmen, with wildlife activists to make sure we solve the problem. And in our opinion, it can be done.
Up next, bass fishing boys.
Oh, that's a dandy. That's what we're looking for, right there. Yes, sir.
There's just something about that first warm day of spring that makes a guy want to get away and go fishing. Who needs a job on a sunny day anyway?
Give me my boat and let me drift away. Who needs a job on a sunny day? Fish ain't batting, don't bother me. Just lay back and watch that scenery. Say, roll on that lazy river. Oh yeah, roll on that lazy river. Well, the river keeps rolling.
It's just, it is just absolutely sheer pleasure to do it. It just gets in your blood, and it's a good way to get away from a hectic lifestyle during the week and to get away a little bit on the weekend and go fishing in a beautiful place like this. It's wonderful.
Yeah, the pressure's on. Now, you told me. Well, like they say out here where it's quiet and fishing, that even not catching anything's better than working.
Business owner Denny Burrow thought running a boating dealership would give him a little more time to pursue his passion for bass fishing.
Seems like that didn't work. Seems like busy all the time. You don't have time to do as much fishing now as I used to.
The best laid plans. But at least on this fine day, Denny was able to steal away for a few hours and persuade his fishing partner, juvenile Judge John Velo, to do the same.
What is the saying? A bad day fishing's worth
better than a good day at work.
It's obvious there's a bit of friendly competition going on here.
Okay. I took you to the secret spot. You got to take me to where they're
well, let's go over yonder and get after it.
Nothing too taxing. You don't want to lose that clandestine feeling of a shared conspiracy. You know, two boys sneaking away from the grown-ups in the real world and playing hooky. But on the other hand, you have to maintain just enough aggression to outmaneuver the other guy.
Well, I just didn't want him to get fishing in the good spot.
And sometimes that extra bit of aggression pays off.
I'm able to keep it above water. There's fish.
Oh, I knew it. Yeah, you're gonna need the net.
Yeah, let's net this little rascal.
Okay, here, let me. Just a minute. Let me get out here.
This is a pretty good fish. Oh, well, man,
today any fish is a good fish. That.
Oh, that's a dandy. That's what we're looking for, right there.
Hey, way to go!
Oh God, get out of the current. Yes, sir.
Oh, that's what we're after.
That's what we're looking for.
Way to go, dude.
It's a smallmouth bass, weighing in at 2.8 pounds.
Okay. So we want to get him back in. Huh?
Yeah, by the time we get back to the shop, he'll weigh about 4 pounds.
That's the whole reason why we come, right there. Those smallmouth fight so hard and pull so hard that it's just incredibly exciting.
You got him right next to the boat.
Yeah, he was out. He wasn't very far. Idaho is such an incredible state as it comes to our wildlife and fishery resources, that they have great largemouth bass fishing here and also great smallmouth fishing, which was that beautiful fish that I just caught and released. And it's I don't know if I'm sure Denny feels the same way. It's just incredibly exciting. You enjoy for fun having competition with your friends when you go out, and it just makes time fly by where you don't have a care in the world other than just fishing and laughing and having a good time. So
I'll hear about this today. He caught 2 already.
What an awesome fish that we caught. We got it on television, and I caught it instead of you.
Oh,
rare?
No, it's not that rare. I smoke him as much as he smokes me.
And so it goes. The first warm day of spring. A couple of guys, a boat, and a lazy river. So who needs a job on a sunny day?
Oh, now give me my boat and let me drift away. Who needs a job on a sunny day? Fish ain't biting, don't bother me. Just lay back and watch that scenery. Say, roll on a lazy river. Oh, roll on a lazy river. Come on now, roll on a lazy river with me.
Coming up next, why does a dipper dip? On tonight's Creature Feature, we're going to answer the question, what makes a dipper dip?
One of the theories is that it's courtship behavior, which is unlikely because they do it year-round. Another theory is that it's a form of communication, as it would be in courtship, but they may have evolved this visual forms of communication, including the eye winking and the dipping, because they tend to live around areas that are really noisy. Another one, and one that I think is probably the most plausible, is that most birds have almost purely monocular vision. They don't have any binocular vision like we do because their eyes are placed on the sides of their head, so they don't have a lot of overlap. And therefore, they don't have a lot of depth perception. And bobbing is sort of a form of triangulation. It allows them to get different views of the same thing to kind of give them a little bit more depth perception. I think that one's probably the most likely.